Hello, I'm John Generone, Editor-in-Chief of Exec Edge here at the ICR conference in Orlando, Florida. Very happy to be back again with Tim McLaughlin, who is co-founder and CEO of GoTab. Tim, thanks for joining us again.
Thank you for having me.
So, Tim, let's talk about you for a moment if we can. So you started out as an e-commerce entrepreneur, and then you became a restaurateur of sorts. Tell us about that journey.
Yeah, that's a crazy one. So I built a services company. It grew into a much larger one, couple hundred people. We did large commerce websites and content websites for public companies. And my last major client was Goldman Sachs. And then as I sold that to a private equity group in LA on more of a potentially bad idea, however you want to think of it. I ended up owning a brewery with a colleague who also exited his tech company near my house, and that one worked, and we thought, okay, well, let's open a second one. And then I realized I really didn't want to be in the restaurant business. I really had a passion for technology, but technology just to solve some of the problems I was seeing in hospitality. So my wife still owns and runs those restaurants. As I tell people, I go home to my client every single night. So if there's something wrong, I hear about it real fast. But yeah, so I live with a restaurateur and I work in technology.
Great. So let's talk about where this technology is most effective, because I think all of us out there who are visiting restaurants and coffee shops are increasingly seeing this stuff. Airports, very, very common to see this. You just mentioned a brewery, but you're also at, I believe, Drive Shack or Topgolf.
We're in a bunch of different venues, all kinds of places. We range from, it's changed a lot from when we started.
Yeah.
It's now a lot, we're even doing fine dining.
Oh, okay.
So there is no QR in a fine dining setting. It's just a handheld POS like you'd see here. Yeah. This is just a commodity phone running with a payment terminal on the back. And there is no QR. So what we discussed last year, I believe, was QRs. A lot of the things here, a lot of the technical innovations are actually behind the curtain, if you will. They're in the kitchen, they're in the bar. There's still a lot of efficiency to be gained by leveraging technology. Yeah. But it's not as guest-facing. Gotcha.
Now, I think that you described GoTab as more than a point of sale, POS. What do you mean by that?
Well, most systems, actually all POSs started with the focus on payments, transactions, taking the order, but in fact, I don't know of any that started with the making the order. We had a weird sort of DNA. We started as a QR system 2 years prior to COVID. Yeah. We actually had success in 2019 before anybody thought QRs were a good idea. Then in 2020, they thought they were a good idea, so we grew very quickly. Yeah. And then in 2021, they hated them and wished they went away. So that's when we rolled out our POS and sort of diversified. The problem is that we actually ended up building the QR, then we ended up building the kitchen and bar operations because we found out we could generate so much volume from QRs that we would actually break the kitchen. We would fail, like monolithically. We would have our worst all-time kitchen failure was the US Open in Southern California, I don't remember where it was, but people, and this wasn't actually our fault, our system did great. It took about 10,000 beer orders for 2 bars. So 2 bars were supposed to make 10,000 beers. As you might imagine, the guests were waiting almost 2 hours. They hadn't really planned for their success. Right. And so they didn't have enough bars. Turns out golfers like beer. And it was pretty catastrophic. So that creates some things you need to consider in the kitchen. So we really started our DNA in the kitchen, in the factory, if you will. And then our POS came out in 2021. Which was really built around how can you efficiently run a kitchen. So the more than a POS, if we had a choice, we would actually say we're a kitchen system, but nobody buys those. So we're more than a POS.
That makes sense, actually. So Tim, I was talking in the green room just now, and I may have even asked you this last year too. I have encountered some of these systems that I'm not a fan of. So by that I mean, I'll go in, and by the time I punch in my credit card number and hit order, I'm thinking, why did I just ask a server to do that? Yeah. So what do you say to that? I mean, you surely hear complaints like that now and then. I'm assuming that was not a GoTab platform I was playing with.
So we actually get the opposite. We get, thank you, this is the best system I've ever used all the time in our technical feedback. Inevitably, there's someone who has a problem, but we get actually probably 9 to 1 compliment to complaints in our technical feedback. But there's a lot of in-between. So one of our most popular features is a thing called EasyTab. It's really popular in bars and breweries and places like that, where you go to the counter, maybe you order your first beer or a round of drinks, and you're standing talking to the bartender, and what happens is on GoTab, you type in your phone number onto the screen after you tap your credit card. So a physical credit card, you're not keying in on your phone, you're not doing anything on your phone.
Yeah.
But you do type in your phone number, and the reason you type in your phone number is they text message you your open tab. So you click the link, it shows whatever you ordered, and if you want to not fight your way back to the bar, you order again from your phone, and they'll text you when it's ready, or they'll bring it to you if they have table service. So essentially, you never typed in your credit card, you never set up an account. Your card's actually a card present, so it's cheaper for the restaurant and it's more secure. So everybody wins. You basically can opt to go back to the bar if you want. You could also order from your phone, and the only reason you would scan a QR is to tell them where to bring it. So there's a lot of in between. I think what you experience is unfortunately a lot of the sort of crappy manifestations of QRs that happen, sort of companies that popped up in 2020 and 2021 and pretty much are all out of business now.
Gotcha. Now, Tim, we were talking about some of the different kinds of establishments you work with, and so these are largely high volumes. We're talking about things like stadiums, we're talking about Topgolf, that kind of thing, but also it can be something like fine dining. So how does it work those seem like very different restaurant concepts to me.
So we've moved away from sort of the stadiums actually aren't a focus of ours, not because we wouldn't work in them, but because they're sort of a political challenge to work with. I would say the large high volume restaurants, like large breweries, like Guinness Brewery runs GoTab. If you go to Hawaii, Maui Brewery they'll have 8,000 guests come through their tap room in a week. Guinness will have 10,000 guests just in 2 days for the St. Paddy's Day. So that is really our bread and butter. That's where we started, because we were solving that high volume problem, both in the taking orders but also in the making orders. But the fine dining is really due to rolling out the handheld POS that we've more recently rolled out. We have coursing and seating and a lot of the functionality that's expected in the fine dining world. Also, our KDS really can beat the most sophisticated kitchen operations, and fine dining actually has a more demanding requirement in the kitchen, because you have to time certain things to make sure they arrive at the same time. Like most common KDSs can't even do sequencing or timing.
Gotcha. All right, let's talk about some Wall Street stuff. Big news, Series A round led by Truist Ventures.
Yep.
Tell us a bit about that, and perhaps future funding needs. Are they in the near term?
So the Truist round closed last year. We really appreciate working with the Truist Ventures team there. They led the round, and that was an 18 million round. We expect to get cash flow positive. We were hoping to squeeze in before the end of this year. It didn't happen, just macro and some other factors. We do expect to get cash flow positive in April, May, maybe June of this year. We also do expect to continue to raise money for growth purposes. Not obviously, if we intend to continue to go quickly, we will probably head back into negative cash flow just in hiring of salespeople and marketing spend. But we do expect that we will go after a growth round. We already have some interested parties that we think would be suitable. But we're always interested in talking to more that know the space.
Great. Now, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but is an IPO a possibility a little bit further out?
I think that's the most likely path for us, partially because our partners like Truist and some of our other software and integrated partners, it's best for them because they would leverage our technology through their channels, and in doing so, we would keep all of our we'd keep maximum value for our partners as well as ourselves. By staying independent and going public, rather than just exiting, say, into an acquisition.
Gotcha. Now, you were named number 29 in Deloitte Technology's Fast 500. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Tell us a bit about how you achieved that. How are you able to keep up with all these other impressive companies out there, particularly in what I perceive to be a competitive space? There are a lot of guys out there trying to do what you're doing, I think.
It certainly seems that way, although in most cases we're doing it before other people are doing it, and then you're seeing it. So a lot of the stuff that we were doing, like when we were doing QRs in 2018, there was one other company in the United States that was doing it.
Wow.
They were acquired by DoorDash. We opted not to be acquired by DoorDash. So the reality is that was 2 years before most people even thought it was a good idea.
Yeah.
A lot of the things we do in the kitchen, nobody else does. So yes, perception-wise, it looks like we all do the same thing. But I can tell you, when we get into the room for a prospect that fits our need, it's very commonly a no-brainer, and they kind of go, okay, yeah, we got to go with GoTab. So we're not a solution for every single problem, but there are certain problems where it's not nearly as competitive as you would think.
Great. Now, can you tell me a bit about this tap to pay POS capability?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So we recently added a new payment processing partner, and they manufacture this device. This is a credit card reader. You've seen them, like Square has a little one.
Yeah.
So this credit card reader is tap, dip, swipe, and it talks to the phone. This is just a Samsung phone, or also it'll talk to, this is my personal iPhone. It talks to that over Bluetooth, and this allows you to dip a credit card. In the United States, not all credit cards are contactless, so you still have to have the ability to dip it for that chip.
Yeah.
Tap to pay allows you to take a payment directly on the phone itself. So you can actually take a credit card, tap it on the back of the phone, either one, an iPhone or an Android phone, and take a contactless payment over NFC. There's no other POS is doing it on both operating systems, iOS and Android. There are one or two that are doing it on one. We're doing it on both. It allows you to not spend the money on this hardware, not maintain the extra hardware, and you actually can deploy the entire point of sale on a phone and take payments. The only downside is that the United States isn't entirely contactless yet. It's about 60-ish%, although it is regionalized.
Interesting. You know, I'm just thinking of something. When I was working in London about 10 years ago, I remember going into a restaurant and then another restaurant, and they were bringing things out that we didn't have here. And I think it might have been that they had the chip sooner. Is Europe ahead of us when it comes to payments?
Yeah, in contactless cards, the ones I just said, contactless credit cards, Europe is almost 100%.
Yeah.
So if you look at a credit card, I have two. You'll see this symbol on the back. There's a little wave symbol, like this one has one and this one does not. So this one has it, this one doesn't. In the United States, some percentage of them don't. In the cities, you'll see it's a lot higher penetration, but in Europe or in Asia, contactless cards are pretty much 100%. So you would actually not need this device at all, except for the Americans who come to your country.
Let's talk about operators in 2024. What is? I mean, there's so many just different pieces to this. What are they most focused on? I mean, is it in the kitchen? Is it at the point of sale? Like, what are restaurants really working most
I would
at?
say they're always focused at the executive level on the guest experience. So what's the most seamless way to make it so that the guest doesn't have to think about paying? That's one of the things we always do is like, can you make the reservation and from there on out everything's just magic? Like, does your game come up automatically? Is your space reserved? Do they already know what you want? Do they know you're in the VIP club and so you get a special menu? Do you not have to think about pretty much anything except for having a good time? That's what everybody wants. That's really what we focus on. But in order for that to happen, you do have to think about things like the kitchen, because it's great that you can order food, but if it doesn't come out when it's supposed to come out, then it's kind of an empty promise. And so it starts out this simple sort of like vision, and then there's the realization of that vision.
Gotcha. All right, Tim, well, we're about to wrap up. I'm going to put it to you now. It's a brand new year, just a week and a half in. What are you most excited about in 2024? What are you prioritizing at GoTab?
I would say I'm particularly excited. We're supporting multilingual and international. We currently support US and Canada, so I'm very excited to go to UK and Australia later this year. Also to support multilingual consumer interfaces for some of our clients that are asking us to move to support overseas.
Great. All right, Tim. Well, this has been terrific. Thanks for joining us again. We've written about you and interviewed a couple times. This is really one to watch, folks. So keep an eye on GoTab. This is Tim McLaughlin, who's co-founder and CEO. Tim, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.